So when cutting these out, I find the easiest thing to do is to mark with a safety pin every 5 or 10 squares before cutting, because it is very, very easy to get it wrong, and I say this having got it wrong many times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, stick my safety pin in. Now you can use paper clips, you just want something that's going to mark and not fall out too easily. Paper clips work very well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in fact this bit is not going to be big enough for what I'm going to need to do. No, I say it's not. Yes, it is. It's big enough. So we've got 5, 10, 15, 20, and it's 22 that I'm looking to cut at, and I think it was 14 across. 5. 5. There we go. So I now know to cut beyond these in order to get my shape. Just make it one bigger, just so that I don't accidentally cut it too small. So I have cut this out. It's a little bit taller than it needs to be because it was that size anyway, and I just thought it'd be easier to leave it, and it's 1 square wider. Get my tongue around it. So on this side I'm going to tidy up the little nibs or knobs or whatever you want to call them, so that it's a bit smoother. Again, a mistake I made was I cut too far into this last bar. I need to put it on here so you can see it. If you make this too thin when you're cutting, it breaks more easily when you stitch, so do be careful with that. And I'm now going to mark up where my other markers need to be and put some more pins in so that I know where I'm going, and I'll show you the finished result in a second. The other way you could do this is, of course, you could sew a rough outline and cut either side of the outline. So I've marked, I need to cut out this little grid of 3, so I've marked where the 3 is, and now I'm going to cut. I say it's very, very easy to cut the wrong place otherwise, so I do recommend some form of marking. Maybe when you get more used to it. So I'm going to be making an S, so you can see that that's come out very easily, and now I'm going to do the same for the second half. So again, I have marked where I need to be cutting. I've put these diagonally to show that I'm not cutting there, and this gap down here is where I'm going to be cutting. For the younger children, I'm afraid parents, you're going to have to do this, and I hope that the letters that you need to cut aren't too complicated. But you can get quite a lot of letters out of each sheet that you'll be getting. You'll be getting a mixture of cut and uncut, so you can choose what to do with it. So you can see that the way that I position the pins makes it almost impossible to cut in the wrong place. I've actually run them along the length that I want to keep in place, and this is a good way to stop yourself accidentally cutting where you shouldn't. And of course, count 2 or 3 times, cut once. 2, 3, 4, 5, and there we go. And then we've got the 5 along here, so we can cut this strip off. Now these little strips can be used either for small decorative items or to repair bits that you accidentally cut. So there is my S, depending which way around you look at it. Sorry. There you go. No, that was upside down, wasn't it? I think that's the right way around. The video's kind of flipped, so I'm not quite sure how you're seeing it. I'm going to take the pins out. I didn't have a huge range of colours of wool, so you're all getting a little bit of black in case you wanted to do an outline overcast, like the edge of this I did in the black, which I actually think looks quite nice. So you're getting a small bit of black, and then some green and red or pink. Okay, so I'm afraid I didn't have enough white to send to everybody, so but obviously if you've got your own wool, feel free to use that. So once you've got your letter roughly cut, you'll see, at least I hope you can see, that there are some rough edges. You can see the little bits extending here beyond the edge. You need to trim those down, and you can either use a blade or you can use a pair of scissors, and I'm going to use a pair of scissors here. So just be careful not to cut the strand that you want to keep there, because it does make it weaker when you do your sewing. But don't try and do this the first cut, because you'll just make mistakes. It's just not worth it. Do it all in different stages. Be very careful when cutting on the inside that you don't actually accidentally cut from here through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend that out of the way so that I can't possibly accidentally cut, and then I'm just going to snip my bits. There we go. And here I'm going to cut away so that I don't accidentally cut this way. Oh, that's broken. But even so, I don't know if you can see, that's broken on the inside there. I don't know why. Maybe it was the bending, maybe I bent it too far. Just turn it over if you want to be working on one side rather than the other. Okay, so that's relatively smooth. That bit needs a bit more trimming. And you will get all these little bits of black plastic all over the place. Sorry about that. The beauty of this is it's a good way to learn to sew, and you can make some really nice three-dimensional objects. I mean, the simple of which is a box. But if you look online, there's some amazing things that people have made. You know, they've made houses, and you can make a bag or a purse from it really quite easily once you know how to do the stitching. But for beginners, the great thing is that this is much easier to sew with this than it is to sew with needle and thread. Okay, sorry, with fabric and needle and thread. And I will be giving you a needle. I very carefully bought some plastic needles especially to do this, and of course I can't find them. I've turned the place upside down trying to find them. So you'll get some form of metal needle with a large hole, some of them large eye, I mean some of them have got bigger eyes than others, so I hope you'll be able to thread them okay. You can always use a bit of cotton thread to thread them if necessary, or use some wire as a needle threader if you need it. Now if you end up with a bit torn like I have in that, again it's very difficult to actually show it. This is partly why it's taken so long to get round to videoing this, is I knew it was going to be difficult and I don't really have the right setup to video sewing. Your best bet is to take a bit of spare and to run it along and sew over that. Make it bigger and trim off the edges, because this is on one of the edges, so I'm going to trim one of the edges off, but otherwise I can leave it, and I'll probably trim it a bit smaller eventually, but at the moment I just want to have something in place. And I'll sew over it, put it underneath so it doesn't show so obviously when I come to that location. If you're not going to sew the edges, it probably won't matter. So it only really matters to, oh, look at that, fell off. So in fact, what I'm not going to put it on now, because I'm going to show you the simplest way to decorate these, and it's not going to involve the edges. So we don't actually need to worry. You only need to repair it or put a second piece in. You can use glue as well, but you're best using fabric glue or a glue gun to do that. But if you use a glue gun, you need to make sure you don't fill up the holes with glue. So that's the problem with that one. But I don't think it'll work very well with normal paper glue with the normal Fevicol that we use. Okay, I'm just going to tidy this up.